Hi, it's Robin. I've got something here you might not have seen before. It's my Bally computer system, which was originally released in 1978. You might remember it being mentioned in my video about the 1979 Home Computer Buyer's Guide that was published in Popular Science. It was the only video game console that was included in that list, among several machines, including the much more common Commodore PAT, TRS-80, Apple II, and some lesser-known computers. And notably, it was among the cheapest of the home computers in that list. Now, it's got a bit of a confusing history because it was sold under various names. So for a quick timeline, Bally was founded in 1932, and they made pinball games for the first many years. In the 1970s, they looked to get into the emerging video game market, and they originally announced the system as the Bally Home Library Computer in October of 1977, about the same time that the Atari 2600 was released. But production delays meant that the Bally system wasn't released until April 1978, and by that time they had changed the name to the Bally Professional Arcade. It sold mostly at computer stores and had little retail exposure, unlike the Atari VCS or Atari 2600. Sales weren't great. In 1979, Bally decided to sell off their consumer products, including the development and production of this game console. And that's when a company named Astrovision bought the rights and started producing the console again around 1980, now called the Bally Computer System. So that's already 3 names that this exact same system has gone through. And I would even hear some people call it the Astrovision, or the Bally Astrovision. And then around 1982, they renamed it again as the Astrocade, and sometimes also called the Astro Arcade. But as far as I know, they're essentially identical, perhaps minor internal revisions. They continued as the Astrocade until they shut down production sometime around 1984 or maybe 1985. So back to that 1979 buyer's guide, it was listed as a home computer. Is that a legitimate claim? And yes, with the addition of a basic language cartridge, it actually becomes a somewhat legitimate computer platform. Originally, they sold one just called Bally Basic, which I don't own. It allowed you to interface a cassette deck to one of the joystick ports through an extra dongle. That was a 300 BPS cassette connection. And then later, they released Astro Basic, which is this cartridge here, which is basically the same. They built the cassette interface right here with this audio jack built into the cartridge instead of being an external dongle. And they increased the cassette speed to 2000 BPS, so nearly 7 times faster than the original. And they also added some sound commands, but otherwise the basic is essentially the same. Originally, the Bally Basic, I believe, was $60 for the cartridge, but starting with the Bally computer system, they included the Astro Basic cartridge with it. And as this insert says, welcome to the world of arcade programming. When you insert your basic Videocade, you obtain the capability of creating your own programs. If you are interested in continuing your education in computer operations, developing games, unique visuals, and audio effects, greater understanding of the tool, then subscribe to The Arcadian. And so that was a newsletter that really was kind of the heart, I think, of the community that was built around this console. So it just plugs in like this. So because of this cartridge and the cassette interface and the existence of that newsletter, so the short answer is yes, this did become a legitimate, if not good, computing platform for a while there in the late 70s and early 80s. It even went a bit beyond just hobbyists. There were actual commercial games released for the Bally on cassette, though as far as I know, they were all very small companies, probably just run by one person out of their home, selling software by mail order on cassette. And besides the Arcadian newsletter, there was also one called The Cursor, later renamed as Basic Express. That was available by subscription around 1980, 1981. The Arcadian newsletter ran from 1978 until around 1984, when the platform finally died out and people moved to other more powerful home computers. Obviously, by 1984, you had the Commodore 64 and even the IBM PC, the Apple II, and so on. But for a few years, it was a surprisingly vibrant scene, and I really think it does deserve to be viewed as a real home computer, even if not a very good one. So take a tour of the system. It's got lovely wood grain around. Yes, I'm sure LGR loves this system. As huge and imposing as it looks, it's actually a bit misleading because this is just a lift-off lid, and inside is room for 15 cartridges. So to talk about the cartridges a little bit, because this really was a pioneering system being developed in 1977, released in early 1978, they did something strangely. Just like they went through many names for the system itself, the cartridges were originally called Videocades. You might have noticed what it said, when you insert your basic Videocade, you obtain the capability. Well, originally these were not called cartridges. They were called Videocades. And as you see, the label for them says that, Professional Videocade. But they didn't seem fully committed to that, because as you might be able to make out here, it says, Insert Cassette. So the cartridges were called Videocades, sometimes they were called cassettes, and then later on they did relent and called them cartridges, at least some of the time. There's the edge connector, recessed in there. And you might notice some similarities here. Here's a standard compact cassette, Commodore 64 game. And there's the Bally Videocade. You can see they're almost exactly the same dimensions. While the Videocade is thicker, it's actually just about the same width as the widest part of a regular compact cassette. Yeah, that's flush there, and about flush there. It's hard to show. So I don't know if there's a good reason for them copying the size of that, if it was just for familiarity, or did they hope to sell them in cassette cases? I don't know. And just to get a better look at the loading process, you just put the cassette in, click it down, and then the eject button is actually a mechanical latch there. That clicks into place. And you can press eject. Not a soft eject, so you can kind of cushion it while you eject it. And the system is fine with you hot swapping cartridges, but you do have to press the reset button in between. But you don't actually have to power off. That's actually encouraged in the manual. And the system does not feature a full keyboard, but perhaps better than most consoles, it has a 24-key keypad. I suppose modeled after a calculator. The actual keys feel a bit more like a remote control from the era. Not a great feel to it. There's certainly actual calculators that have a much nicer feel. I like the gold trim. Hidden down in the front left corner is the switch selector for channel 3 and 4. Hidden on the back are the on-off power switch, 4 joystick ports that are 9 pins, but not Atari 2600 compatible. The pin configurations are a little different. They may have already had this set in place before the Atari 2600, kind of set the standard, or maybe they didn't want to follow it on purpose. And then these kind of covers, this is apparently a light pen connector behind here, and this is a full bus connector where all the system signals are available. Like, I don't know if that breaks off. Anyway, I don't want to break it off. But I believe it's behind there. As too many systems from the day did, both the power cord and the video cord are hardwired. In keeping with the inconsistent naming, the power supply says Bally Professional Arcade, while the switch box just says Bally Arcade. It's not professional, I guess. And while the console does only have RF out, it's actually a pretty good signal. I'll be using just the RF today. I haven't modified this for composite. The Astro Expansion Bus connector, there was supposed to be I want to say Z-Grass, but I guess it's Z-Grass. It's American after all. Z-Grass unit, which was a full computer expansion. There's different specs I've heard, but it had a full keyboard, a math coprocessor, 32K of RAM, 32K of ROM, with the GRASS programming language, sometimes referred to as graphics. And it also had I/O ports for cassette and floppy disk, and would apparently make it CP/M compatible. But it's unclear how common this really was. I did find a price list that had it for sale for $600. I don't know how many of these actually got out in the wild. I think it's extremely rare. And also that system was spun off into something called a Datamax UV1, which was like a standalone system. And by then they went after the video market. It was like a box for doing video graphics and video titling. I've heard as few as 300 were made. Again, it's hard to verify some of this. As for specs, it has a Z80 processor in it, 4K of RAM, which is way more than most consoles of the day, but we'll talk about this more later. That was basically all video RAM and was necessary. For example, the Atari 2600 only had 128 bytes of RAM, so this has got like 32 times the RAM. And the video chip is really a highlight. It was designed by Dave Nutting Associates, and Bally ended up just buying that whole company. The same video chip was apparently used in Bally's arcade games like Gorf and Wizard of War. That video chip could do a resolution of 320 by 204 pixels, 2 bits per pixel, but that would take 16K of very fast RAM, and so this home unit just doesn't support it, even though apparently the video chip is capable of it, but it can't work within this system. Instead, it just runs 160 by 102 resolution, but still 2 bits per pixel, 4 colors, from a palette of 256 colors. One other funny thing about the Videocade cassette cartridges is that the product number is very prominently displayed right along with the title, to the point where it looks like the number is part of the title in a lot of the cases. So this might be Astro Battle 2009, Cosmic Raiders 2019, Solar Conqueror 2018, Star Battle 2005, and Football 3002. Makes them all sound kind of like cheap spin-off sci-fi movies. Okay, so enough talking about it. I'll try hooking it up now. Okay, we'll try powering it up here. So it often powers up in a pretty glitchy state, and you have to press the reset button. And then it works fine. I'm not sure why that is. There's even a weird warning in the manual about how it might goof up for the first while you use it, and then you should just reset it again, due to sensitive equipment. Okay, so you might notice I powered it up without a cassette inserted, and it's prompting, do we want to run Gunfight, Checkmate, Calculator, or Scribbling? These are built in to the unit without even putting a cartridge in, which is actually pretty cool. Okay, and something I haven't talked about yet is the joysticks or controllers are really odd. They're these, they look like pistol grips. They even have that texture, kind of like, if you had a toy gun back in the 70s. Might look a lot like that. Has a single fire button or trigger. But the really weird thing is this top knob. So each controller, well, this isn't weird, but they're numbered. This is controller number 1, and there's stickers for 2, 3, and 4, if you have all 4 controllers plugged in at once. But this top bit is actually like a joystick. So you hold it. So there's your fire button to trigger. And the top here is a joystick. 8 directions. Tiny little joystick. And then you can twist this knob as well. And it's like a paddle. All built into one controller. So this is most obvious in Gunfight. So select number 1. And enter your max score. Whoop. Bit of key bounce there. Clear. Clear. What? The clear doesn't work? So you can move around. This is a 2-player game, so there's no AI for that other player. You see I can move the fella around. If I twist, then it aims his gun pretty smoothly. I'm a good shot. Got me. And so on. This was actually a fairly popular arcade game, so, you know, in the 70s. If you had another person to play against, this would actually probably be a pretty decent game to be built in. And the other built-in game is this Checkmate. 2 games and press equals to start it. Number of players, and you can play this one just 1 player. And I'm that leftmost player, and this is just like Tron Light Cycles. Ooh, got rid of those guys, or one of them. Oh. Oh. Now I just gotta outlast them. Hey, I won. I guess I should have just done 1 game, eh? You get the point. Oh. Well, I didn't win that one. Oh, the AI plays fast when you lose there. Game over. And it has this calculator mode. And so we can do like 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's that key bounce again. Clear. 1, 2, 3. Plus 4, 5, 6. 5, 7, 9. And we can do, well, lots of key bounce there. Times 999. Overflow. So it's got a somewhat useful calculator built in. In 1978, it was probably awesome to see the history of your calculations on your TV screen. That's a pretty good picture for RF there. I'm not sure if there's solutions for me to try and fix the keypad. Maybe I'll try that later, not today. And finally, scribbling. It's kind of like a drawing art program or something. I think you can change, oh there, you can change the cursor size by twisting. And the color at the same time, I guess. Again, not much of a game, but probably would be a fun thing to play around with when just even using your TV for games is pretty novel. I have Space Invaders, and here 2009 Astro Battle. Yeah, so they both say copyright 1977 on them. I don't think Space Invaders was licensed properly, but in a way it's like this generic phrase, isn't it? I think it was cloned quite a bit without repercussions for a little while. Just gotta look at one game. I have several others, but we'll just try this one. So here, I'll plug in while it's hot. No problem. And then press reset. And now you can see it's added Space Invaders to the menu list. So press 1. And we'll just play Novice. It's actually a pretty good game of Space Invaders. Of all the early arcade games, I think Space Invaders is my favorite. The one that shipped with the VIC-20, well, the clone, Avenger. I think that's great. So even though the hardware doesn't have any sprites, you can see it can really handle a lot of objects. So it's quite a capable game system. Like, what is that? That's 32 invaders at a good frame rate. Let's get one of those. Where's the mothership? Okay, well, anyway, you get the idea. But a pretty capable system. Just gotta wait for a mothership. Come on! Why are they not? Oop! There we go. Ooh, 300 extra points. Another oddity is if you play the game far enough, you actually just get game over, because you know how the aliens spawn one row lower each new level. Well, they actually will start right at the ground, and it's just game over. Like, you don't have a chance. You can't even fight them. Kind of weird. Other than that, a good game of Space Invaders. And these controllers aren't bad. Kind of unique and more versatile than some. Alright. That's enough, right? Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do today is put BASIC in, and we're going to try and recreate my favorite 10 print program. Here's that basic prompt. I'm just going to switch the camera to overhead. And various programs have these overlays. This one for BASIC is, well, really crucial to using this. So I think I'll make another video that gets into more detail with this BASIC. All we're going to try and do today is recreate 10 print. So we're at the BASIC prompt, and we just type in the line numbers. Incidentally, the numbers don't line up. On the built-in number pad, you have 0 down the bottom row, 1 on the left, just 1 up. But they've shifted all that up 1. So it might be very confusing to try to use this BASIC without the proper overlay, because even the numbers don't match up. So to try and translate 10 print, we start by typing in the line number. This keyboard really is the very much the weak point of using this as a home computer, like for programming. But it does work, so I'll show you how. And it's kind of a neat system if annoying. So we just type in the line number. There's a number of shift keys down here at the bottom, which we'll get to shortly. But when you have to type in numbers, fortunately, you just can type them directly in. So there's a 1 and a 0. And if you want, it's optional, but there's the space button. I'll show the standard 10 print program that if you watch my channel, you've probably seen it 100 times in Commodore BASIC. There is a print keyword down here, and to access it, you press this words key that's in yellow or gold. And that's like a shift. You see how the screen has turned yellow, and then it's shifted up to this print command, and it will type the whole word in. With some experimenting, I found out you can't print a character number the way we want to. We want to print a character string by number, so we'll erase that. Instead, there's a strange, I guess we'll call it a variable, system variable called TV. So to type a T is red, so we press the red shift, T, and a V is green, so we'll press the green shift button, TV, and you see how the screen changes to let you know you've done that. And then you just assign something to that. So unshifted, we can do equals, TV equals. And this is the equivalent of printing a character number. And you type in the character number you want. Now in Commodore BASIC, it's 205 for the slashes we want. But if we look in the little chart included in the excellent basic manual here, so we'll see in the chart here that we actually want 47 for the 1/ and 92 for the \. And thanks to my patron Merrick Jenkins for this little trick. So what we want to do is to choose between two numbers, 47 and 92. There's a difference of 45. So we'll type in 45, and then we will multiply, and note that we use the X for that, but that's different than the X character up here. That's also different. That's not really an asterisk there, right? Or even if it is, we use the regular algebraic times symbol. Anyway, 45 times a random function. Right there is the random function. So we press words, and it types out random for us. I kept thinking that said and, but it's actually the random function. They have to type in these parentheses or brackets. So the opening one is green. And then we want a random number between 1 and 2. So we type 2 in. And then a blue shift. So there, it's going to do a random number between 1 and 2. And that's going to give us, if it's a 1, we get a 45. And if it's a 2, we get a 90 out of that. But we want 47 or 92. So we will add 2. So now we have a number. Does that make sense? Either 47 or 92, that's going to be assigned to TV. And that'll print our character. Now all that's left is that we have to go to 10. AstroBasic does allow multiple instructions on one line, but you separate them with a semicolon. So that's here, a red shift. And then the keyword of go to is up here, shift, gold shift, go to. And then the line number, 10. And we press this go button instead of enter. And now it's in memory. We can list our program if we want to. List, go. It looks good. Are we ready to run it? Run and go. Woohoo! Yeah, and somewhat strangely, this basic makes sound every time a character is printed. And that kind of smooth scrolls. So I realize that's not the greatest maze. Turn that down a bit. On the Commodore machines, the slashes, well, they're really diagonal lines. They reach right up into the corner and connect a lot nicer. On a lot of these other machines, you can use the slash and backslash, but it's not nearly as pleasing effect because it has these large gaps in between. But I think that's the best we can do right now. Maybe we could use the actual bitmap graphics to do a better 10 print. Ooh, that might be a neat project for the future. Okay. And this strange little symbol here is H, and the manual just says H. So I was like, but that's a special H for halt. So we'll try pressing that. There we go. And that's like break or stop on other systems. Okay, so that's a first look at this Bally computer system. I know we didn't try loading or saving, and we only took a very quick look at the basic. I think I want to make another video. We'll try to write a more ambitious program, look at more of the instructions, and try a load and save, and maybe look at some other features of it. But to answer the initial question is that, yes, this was a legitimate computer system, not a very good one, but it would enable somebody to program their own computer, save and load, share programs with other people, and apparently some people even made games and sold them. So it even had a commercial aspect to it. It's really quite amazing for a game system from 1978. And even though I definitely wouldn't want this to be my daily driver computer, it's really a fun little machine. And we can look at it more later, but it comes with a fantastic manual here that is just absolutely full of great examples. A reference manual. It even has, like, here's a system block diagram. There's that system bus, shows it has all the signals on it. pinouts for the hand controllers, as they're called, and the light pen. Even has a memory map. So how cool is that? And those little kind of details are what make this much more of a legitimate computer system. Almost all the other consoles would claim to be like a computer, such as the Atari, the Intellivision, and so on, but they came up with even less. And the Atari 2600 basic programming cartridge, that is terrible compared to this. Okay, thanks to my patrons for their support, and thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next time.